Welcome back. One final point before we go tonight. What the mainstream media was too afraid to tell you about the news this week. This week, while the mainstream media obsessed over Meghan McCain crying on The View, here are the things that happened that really matter. A court in Canada ruled that a 14-year-old girl will be allowed to undergo transgender hormone injections against the wishes of her parents. The Canadian court ruled that if her parents call her their daughter, or address her by her female birth name, or use a female gender pronoun when referring to her, or even talking to a third party about her, that will be considered family violence under the penalty of the Family Law Act. The court said the 14-year-old is suitably capable of giving consent herself to such a medical procedure, even though this child tried to commit suicide last year and her father testifies she has underlying mental health issues. But did the mainstream media report on that? Nope. The mainstream media didn't say a word about how horrifying it is that the government is taking away a child from her parents because the parents think psychological treatment will be more curative than life-changing and permanent surgery. The mainstream media also didn't report that this isn't just happening in Canada. It happened here in the U.S. too last year in Ohio. 107 House Democrats, led by Democratic Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal of Washington, introduced a healthcare plan more radical than Bernie Sanders, a plan that would outlaw all private health insurance. These Democrats call the bill battle-ready, but it doesn't have a price tag or even a funding mechanism. It would eliminate 1 to 2 million jobs. It would kick 177 million Americans off their current health insurance. It would end Medicaid, end Medicare, cover elective abortions, and put government in charge of all of it. But did the mainstream media report on this? Nope. They didn't dare touch how insane and radical this plan is because nearly half of the Democrats in the new House Democratic majority support the plan, which means it's not something the mainstream media can brush off as, oh, it's just coming from the fringe. This is the Democratic Party. 1 in 3 women who try to cross the border into the United States are subject to sexual violence on this journey through Mexico to the border. In addition, every little girl over the age of 9 years old is given a pregnancy test at our border by ICE agents due to how rampant the child abuse and sex abuse is. Now, I never thought I'd say this, but kudos to the New York Times for corroborating the truth about how many, this horribly high number of women who were violently raped and assaulted by traffickers and smugglers on the dangerous journey to the border. But other than the New York Times article earlier this week, did the rest of the mainstream media report on this story or talk about the children, migrant children, used in so-called recycling rings of minors that illegal alien adults use to gain entry across our border? Nope. Even though the mainstream media loves to pretend they care about children whenever they can invoke the word cage, the mainstream media was silent about the actual abuse of women and children at the border because the mainstream media knows as well as you and I do that we could stop this problem right now if we built a wall and secured our border. The mainstream media doesn't care to report any of that to you, so we will. And that is my final point. You can reach me on Twitter at Liz_Wheeler. If you liked the show, please send me an email at oann.com/contact. In the meantime, catch us here tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, and until then, have a good night.